Good afternoon. My name is Ces Butner, and I have the honor to serve as this year's president of Rotary Club of Oakland. Founded in 1908, the Rotary Club of Oakland is the third oldest Rotary Club of some 35,000 Rotary clubs throughout the world. We are a community of 300 men and women from all walks of Oakland civic, commercial, and community life, committed to Rotary's motto of service above self. I'd like to welcome you to our 5,315th meeting. They keep coming. For over 111 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests from around the world to our club meetings. We continue to do so virtually. So if you're a visiting Rotarian or if you're a guest of a Rotarian, please let us know by typing your name and the name of your club into the chat box located at the center bottom of your screen, as indicated by the red arrow on the slide you're viewing now. By doing so, we will be able to recognize you later in this meeting. Also, we recommend that all participants view this Zoom meeting by clicking the speaker view button located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And if you have comments throughout the meeting or questions for the speaker, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen for that as well. Because we want to remain grounded and focused, we always begin our meeting by jointly reciting our vision, which is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And now we have a special guest today to offer us the thought for today. Is he a Rotarian?
Good morning, boys and girls. This is Clown C. Clown, the official clown of Oakland Rotary for more than 40 years. Loved and admired by all, especially C.J. Hirschfield. A little Halloween humor to start our day. Why do skeletons have low self-esteem? They have no body to love. Why did the ghost go into the bar? For the booze. What do you call a witch's garage? A broom closet. What does a vampire fear most? Tooth decay. But that for the day. What soap is to the body, laughter is to the soul. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you. In case you forgot, this is Halloween, and as we announced by past President Robert Kidd last week, we are having a mask contest today. A secret judge will be viewing this Rotary meeting and selecting a winner that will be announced at the end of this meeting. So if you forgot to put on your mask or costume, you've still got time, but do so quickly because the ghost judge is looking. I hope you enjoyed last week's meeting featuring Lee Gerland, who gave us a fascinating details of the aftermath of the awful DHS immigration policy of separating children from their parents at the border. With some 5 I don't know where I got left off. Did everybody hear that?
We didn't hear anything.
Didn't hear anything. Sorry about that. I wanted to make sure everybody remembered that this, in case they forgot, this is Halloween and it's announced by past President Robert Kidd last week. We are having a mask contest today, as evidenced by that introduction of thought for the day. A secret judge will be viewing this Rotary meeting and selecting a winner that will be announced at the end of the meeting. So if you forgot to put on your mask, you still got time. You can do so quickly because the ghost judge is looking. Now, I hope you enjoyed last week's meeting that featured Lee Gerland, who gave the fascinating details of the aftermath of the awful DHS immigration policy of separating the children from their parents at the border. With some 545 families still unable to be reunited. It remains a stain on our country. I and many of your fellow Rotarians were touched by Lee's talk and in typical Rotary fashion, wanted to do something about it. Well, I'm happy to report that Oakland number 3 is trying to do something. As we suggested during the question and answer period, we're engaging Rotary International to work with our clubs worldwide to help in reuniting those families. That's what I love about this club. See a service need, fill that need, and always looking to service above self. You should be proud to be a member of this club. Today, we'll have another great speaker. So let's sit back and enjoy another in our great Civic Thursday meetings where you can catch a great speaker, get involved with Rotary service where service above self exists. So let's get started with the meeting with our Business Development Committee meeting sponsor this week. The sponsor of the meeting this week is Rotarian David Kirsten.
Thank you, President Ces, and let me just pull up my slides here. My name's David Kirsten. I'm with Wide Angle Media, and I just wanted to start with what I'm grateful for to get centered. I'm grateful for the gracious benefactor who made this presentation possible to you guys. Grateful for my daughters, Carrie Ann, age 5, and Elvira, age 14, who turns 15 tomorrow. The opportunity to do what I love and that I no longer work in politics. What is my story? My parents worked for the California state government their entire careers. My mom was the director of the Senate Office of Research for just 20 years, working under Willie Brown and John Burton. And my dad was the chief deputy for legislative council, one of the four chief deputies under the top guy. They're the attorneys for the California legislature. I worked most of my career, 20 years in politics, served as a progressive tax reformer, Capitol staffer, campaign consultant. The only kind of remnants from my career in politics is I still do teach public budgeting and economics over at the USF School of Management. And my trade is really public policy. What do I do now? I help small businesses generate a quantum leap in their business by combining powerful video marketing tools and business coaching. This is actually my stepdaughter, Elvira. I took this picture a couple years back, which was inspired by that Kaepernick photo. I have 2 weekly live podcasts, Quantum Leap Live and The Ripple Effect. And I host live events, and I have an event coming up that's actually inspired by Danny Mai's event, which I'm going to talk about a bit later on December 1st, a business development event from 1 to 5. How can I help you? I have a flagship program called Quantum Leap, which is a video marketing program that has a starter package and an ongoing video program, everything from a weekly podcast to quick tips videos. It's really customized to fit your needs, whether you've never been on camera or just a short while. I kind of work with people to become a great presenter and let their inner light shine through. What makes compelling video? This is my daughter, my 5-year-old. She's about 4 in this photo. Engaging storytelling evokes emotional reaction, positive energy, letting your personality shine through, authenticity and spontaneity, collaboration between people who know video. This is probably the most important thing. It's so important to have a collaborator. We can't do it all ourselves. Just wanted to end with a quote: everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. That's Albert Einstein. And here's my contact information. I'll put my website in the chat, and thanks everyone for having me present today, and to the benefactor who made this possible. I'll kick it back to you, President Ces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Now, past District Governor Ed Jelen, do we have any visiting Rotarians or guests?
Indeed we do, President Ces. Thank you. Let me just check and make sure I didn't miss anybody. I see Keith Uriarte brought a guest with him today, back for another visit. Allison Chin who's a graduate of UC Davis and also works at BioMarin. And let's see, CJ has a guest here, Lois Corin. So welcome, Lois. Welcome, Allison. Nice to have you with us today. That's it, Seth.
Thank you, Ed, and welcome all guests. Past President Sean Marks, I understand you have an announcement regarding our elections. Not Tuesday's national elections, but our Rotary Club of Oakland elections.
Thank you, President Ces. I'm past President Sean Marks, coming to you from beautiful Kauai. And I'm here to talk to you today about probably the most important election of our lifetime, coming up next week. And that is the election for the nominating committee that will select our board of directors for next year, as well as our president for 2 years from now. And today is voting day. So you'll have to until 8 o'clock tonight to vote. There's a link to vote in the chat. And the way it works is choose, well, you get 7 votes. You can distribute those 7 votes in any way you want. So you can vote 7 times for one person. You can spread it out over 7 different people, any way you want. But please, I think there's also a link on our website. Please take some time and vote by 8 o'clock tonight. We will have a first meeting following this meeting next Thursday of the nominating. Thank you, President Ces. Vote.
Quick correction. It will not be on the website, but the link will be available, will be sent to everybody who attends this meeting. If you are using your phone, please email Pat Williams and let her know that you were at the meeting.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, we got all that correct. 7 votes you have. So
Did that evil wolf eat Pat Williams?
beg pardon?
Did that evil wolf eat Pat Williams?
I think so. I don't know. I will let the judge take care of all of that. Because they're looking around. Our ghost judge is looking around. We have a tradition of transitioning our red badge members, new members, to blue badge, fully engaged member, when that member completes certain tasks. They have to go through the new member orientation. They have to join a committee, and they have to give a commitment to the Rotary Foundation and the Oakland Rotary Endowment. And finally, they have to give a 3-minute self-introduction. And today we have Rotarian Kevin Kelly giving his 3-minute introduction. Kevin.
Thank you, Seth, for the intro. And I have been in Rotary for 2.5 years, so about time that I did my 3-minute intro. So I originally moved to California in 2001 from Boston. And at that time, I didn't know the difference between San Francisco and San Diego. And just randomly moved to the Bay Area with a couple friends, and glad I made the Bay Area my choice, and have now been here now for 19 years. And I had an interesting kind of like career development out here. I had played lacrosse in college. It had been a big part of me growing up, building my confidence. And so I thought I was going to become a college lacrosse coach. I thought that's what I thought my professional career would be. And I helped create Piedmont High School's program. But then in the year 2004, I started working in the city of Richmond at an education program. And that just kind of changed my life, and kind of really realized that when young people are given the resources, awesome programming, and the confidence, they can break through any wall. And so I had this interesting kind of paradox in my career. Daily, I was working in the city of Richmond, working with high schoolers, and I was also going over to Piedmont to coach lacrosse. And so for 10 years, I kind of did these 2 things. And in the back of my mind was, how could I combine these 2 passions of mine? In 2009, I moved into Oakland. And the second I stepped into Oakland, I knew that this is the city that I wanted to be at for a while. There's just something about Oakland that allows you to be you and create your own space and create your own pathway. And then in 2012, after working in Richmond for 10 years and coaching in Piedmont, I said, you know what, I want to bring everything together in Oakland that I've been doing. So I created this organization called the Oakland Lacrosse Club, which uses lacrosse to do leadership, academic counseling, and nutrition education for youth from Oakland public schools. And for me, it kind of brings together all my values. And I think it kind of connects with the city of Oakland's values. I think the first thing is Oakland has an incredible sports history. And so I feel like lucky that we're kind of creating a new sport in Oakland to allow kids to kind of try a new sport, but be part of that history. Second, Oakland just has such a great tradition of social justice. And for us, our program's free. We provide uniforms, transportation, equipment, so that any Oakland public school student can be in our program. And third, it's just the overall connection to community. Our programs partner with 12 Oakland public schools, and I think overall we represent 25 of the public schools where our kids come from. And Rotary has been a really big part of it. 3 of our board members are from Rotary. So we have Sean Marks is on our board, Tom Lamone's on our board, and Howard Lowe is our board chair. So I feel, Rotary has just been so helpful in our growth as an organization and making connections, and Rotary has supported us. So this is my first Zoom Rotary meeting. I've been a little bit out of like the virtual Rotary. I usually go to the Thursday lunches and other events. So I'm excited to kind of get back into the Zoom fold and connect with people. And if you want to reach out, just share your email in the chat and I can respond back. And hope everybody's healthy and safe. And if you need to vote twice next week, please do so. That's it.
Thank you, Kevin. And when we return to in-person meetings, your shiny new blue badge indicating your completion of permanent member requirements is waiting on you. Congratulations. We are also inducting a new member today. She will be introduced by her sponsor with 2 interesting facts about our newest Rotarian. Rotarian Keith Urarte.
Thank you, President Ces, fellow Rotarians. With great pleasure and honor, I introduce our newest Oakland 3 Rotarian, my friend, and the Oakland District 4 City Council member, Shang Tao. Shang is the daughter of Hmong refugee parents from Laos. She was born and raised in unincorporated Stockton and is the 7th of 10 children. Shang is a domestic violence survivor. A single mother, she put herself through college. Shang comes from humble beginnings, where her parents taught her the importance of building community and helping others. It is through this lens that Shang has charged herself to give back. Shang is a Cal grad. While a student, she helped establish the Bear Pantry for students with families who could not afford to buy healthy food. Shang is the first Hmong woman in California to serve as a council member. As Oakland City Council, Shang fights for transparency, wildfire prevention, and addressing the homeless and affordable housing crisis and the quality of life concerns. Fellow Rotarians, Shang Tao.
Shang, we are happy that you have chosen to join us, and please know that your family and friends are always welcome to join us and to participate in our projects and events. By accepting membership, you have adopted the vision, our vision, which is together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. You also agree to conduct your affairs according to the Rotary four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? You will receive your Rotary pin, and we hope you will wear it with pride and find pleasure and fulfillment by attending meetings, participating in our service activities, practicing service above self, and by contributing to the Rotary Foundation and Oakland Rotary Endowment. You'll also receive via mail a roster of your 300 newest best friends, Rotary Made Easy Handbook, your four-way test, and our Centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the 3rd oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland #3. Finally, when we return to live meetings, your red badge will be waiting on you, indicating your status as a new member. So now it is my pleasure, privilege, and honor to induct you as the newest member of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Let's give our newest member a warm Rotary welcome. Yay, we'll do that as well too. I'm sorry we are not in person where we can give you the full standing ovation, but that's what we normally do, Chantal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be a Rotarian. I had my mask on. I figured I'd take it off for this special occasion. Very
good. You joined right in right away and started doing everything like a Rotarian. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I've got the spirit. You know it.
Thank you, Shane. Meeting sponsor, Rotarian David Kirsten, you have an announcement for us, I believe.
Yes, thank you, President Ces. I just wanted to make sure everybody, all Rotarians, register for the Business Expo. Danny Mai, who couldn't make it today, asked me to make the announcement for November 5th from 3 to 5 p.m. We have Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf to talk about our local economy and upcoming election. This will be a thought-provoking discussion among Rotarians, business leaders, and our local elected officials. I hope you can sign up and proudly represent our club. I will put the link to sign up in the chat box. Thanks, President Ces.
Thank you. And now for the breakout rooms. Let's have some fellowship, Halloween fun, and check out the masks for a few minutes before our speaker for the day. Will you put us in the breakout room, Sandeep? Hirschfield, do us the honor of introducing this week's Civic Thursday speaker.
Thank you, President Ces. Well, Jim Lebrecht is an Oakland-based filmmaker, sound designer, and disability rights activist. Lebrecht and Nicole Newnham are co-producer directors of Crip Camp, an award-winning documentary that was executive produced by Barack and Michelle Obama. The film tells the story of teen summer camp Gen Ed and its impact on the disability rights movement. This year, the film won the Audience Award at the Sundance Film Festival, and just announced this week, the film led the Critics' Choice Association's documentary nominations with 5. Jim will talk about how the East Bay became a hub of the movement beginning in the 60s. Please welcome Jim Lebrecht.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here, and really deeply appreciate it. And I think it's really great. I'll admit that I know of Rotary, but it's been really a pleasure to kind of see how your meetings start and learn a little bit more about your incredible organization. I wanted to talk to you today a bit about the history of disability rights in the East Bay, and perhaps talk a little bit about Crip Camp, the documentary that Nicole and I made, and a little bit about myself. And I think that they all pretty much tie in together pretty neatly. So a little bit about myself. I grew up just north of New York City in Westchester County. I'm 64 years old. I came out to California in the fall of 1974 and went to college at UC San Diego, and then was fortunate enough to move up to Berkeley. Actually, it was Oakland. My first time was in Oakland when I got a job at the Berkeley Repertory Theater as their sound designer from 1978 to about 89. And I must say that I always thought that I wanted to live in Northern California. Growing up back east, I was, I'm a deadhead. I listened to a lot of the music coming out of the Bay Area, the Airplane, and all these other folks. And I just felt like a certain kinship to this part of the world. But little did I really kind of know that it really, it was a place for me to be because of the disabled community. And I must say that when I first kind of came out to Berkeley, it was probably around 75. I got into this camp, Camp Jeanette, and a bunch of folks from the camp. There's a summer camp for people with disabilities. So many people wound up moving to Berkeley, and I'll get to that in a second, kind of what that story is all about. But I remember coming up and visiting. I'm sure I was probably going to a Dead show or something like that, and visiting with my friends, and it was just amazing to be in Berkeley and to see the number of people with disabilities here. And it was like, I kind of said, it's like Disneyland here for people with disabilities. A, that there was just so many people here, and B, that I felt so comfortable. I think that where, in growing up in New York or even in school, I kind of felt like I was kind of an anomaly, and that people with disabilities weren't seen that much in society. If I went to a restaurant, it always seemed, especially back in the day, now we're talking, how many years ago, over 40 years ago, they didn't quite know where I should sit or whether, I could, even understand a menu, right? And you come up to here to the Bay Area, and we're such an inclusive community. And it's just like, it wasn't any kind of a big deal. I didn't feel like I stuck out, which is really a really great sense of freedom. So, okay, so why this part of the world, and why this community? One can trace, there's the disability independent living movement and the disability civil rights movement. And they're really parallel and very, very deeply entwined with each other. But without your independence and without your freedom, you can't be out in society. And you can't really be part of society without your civil rights. So back in the late 60s, a program started at UC Berkeley, which admitted severely disabled students. Students there lived at Cal Hospital. There was personal care attendants set up. And out of that group of people was one notable person, Ed Roberts. And if anybody who's driven down Adeline Street in Berkeley and seen that beautiful building right above the Ashby BART station, the Ed Roberts Center, that's named after Mr. Roberts. Ed was really one of the early leaders in the civil rights movement and independent living movement, and was one of the founders of the Center for Independent Living. So because the university was accepting students with disabilities, it was drawing more people. The university was starting to become accessible. And then there was pressure on the city of Berkeley to start improving their accessibility. There's a legendary story about how curb cuts or curb ramps weren't being made, and that a group of folks in the middle of the night got some sledgehammers out and broke down part of a curb and laid in some asphalt to make a ramp. I've heard that that's true, and I've heard that maybe not, but regardless of that, very emblematic of the times. And so, and I'm looking around and seeing all these wonderful people here, and I think that we remember the late 60s as a time of social upheaval and liberation movements and activism, anti-war protests and such. And I think that those of us in the disabled community certainly saw that, and in our experience at Camp Jened, for which the Crip Camp story begins, we saw these other liberation movements going on and saying we need one for ourselves. And you look at the buses and the BART system, none of these things were accessible to us. As somebody who's a wheelchair user my whole life, I was born with spina bifida. I would take the train down from Westchester to visit my grandmother in the Greenwich Village. But even just getting up to the platform and being able to climb out of my chair to help pull my wheelchair up to get on a train wasn't easy. And then trying to get through 2 blocks down from Grand Central Station, I would have to, roll my wheelchair and try to figure out where the shortest curbs were, because you could pop a wheelie and get up on the curb if you're rolling along, and then just oofed it. So, and and I really encourage everybody to watch Crip Camp, because I think it's of course I'm a little prejudiced about this, but it's a really kind of an unknown story but a very important story of American history. And one of the characters, Corbett O'Toole, who lives here in the Bay Area, she says, we were living in a world that wasn't built for us. And indeed, that's been kind of our experience. So when the Center for Independent Living was established, it was an organization started by and run by people with disabilities. And it was a place that you could go to help find housing, to help get hooked up with personal care attendants. If you qualified and need to get on SSI for financial support, you could go there and folks would help you. And I benefited from that. So I moved up here in 1978, and I went to CIL, and what was that? The House Hunters or Home Hunters? Anyway, I was able to find my listings there, and many people there actually even also got hooked up with people that would help pay for and build ramps into their homes. So it was a great resource center for folks like me. So certainly we didn't have snow like we had back in the East Coast, and Berkeley is parts of Berkeley, relatively flat. It was just the East Bay was just an ideal place to kind of settle. And I'm really kind of talking centrically with somebody who uses a wheelchair to get around. But even for me, it's like, wow, parking's a lot easier in the East Bay than it is in San Francisco. And it's a little bit warmer here. So this is really where I wanted to live. One of the outgrowths also of CIL was a legal group that wound up becoming DREDF, the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund. And for over 40 years, they have been very active in advocating for the rights of people with disabilities. They really started out really being advocates for parents with disabled children to make sure that their kids would get a proper education. But they've been involved with so many different things, and really an organization that is looked to and is active in litigation and education. And I had three chunks in litigation, education, and so sorry, my brain is just slightly off today. And if you're not familiar with DREDF, they're a great resource just to kind of understand really kind of what the latest issues are for people with disabilities. And right now, I think all of us are feeling a great deal of anxiety about what the future of our country is going to be with the election. What is it, about four or 5 days away? And for myself, someone with a disability, I have to say that the attacks on the Affordable Care Act are a real hot topic for people with disabilities. I knew what it was like before I was guaranteed a right to insurance, and what I could get was extremely expensive, very, very limited. And when I knew that I could not be turned down finally for insurance, it told me that I didn't have to worry about going bankrupt because of a medical condition, and that I would always be able to get the kind of help that I needed. So, so really kind of, if we want to kind of get ourselves up to date on disability and disability rights and activism, there's one other aspect of all of this that I really enjoy telling you about. And this is the disability justice movement. And we've all got to have a sense of what disability rights might be about. But disability justice was started about 15 years ago as a movement from people who have been marginalized within the disabled community. And we're talking about Black, Indigenous people, other people of color, and LGBTQ folks who felt like that their perspective and their lives wasn't being taken into consideration by the kind of established groups. And as someone who, as a 64-year-old white guy, I didn't know a lot about this, and I've been learning and educating myself. And I consider these people the modern day activists. And if you've seen Crip Camp, and you see how in 1977, a group of disabled people took over a federal building for 26 days to get the Carter administration to issue regulations called HEW 504, which stated that if you get money, federal money, you have to not discriminate against the disabled. That I see in this movement the same kind of community and the same kind of energy and ingenuity that I know is so much part of our history. And I must say, there's a group called the Disability Justice Culture Club. And these folks, and that group was started by an incredible woman by the name of Stacy Milburn, who was really a leader in our community, who unfortunately passed earlier this year. But it was kind of like a home in a community setting for folks with disabilities. And one of the things that this group did that reminds me so much of what you folks do is that a couple of years ago, when we had our first set of blackouts or rolling power shutoffs because of the wildfire danger, these folks sprung into action and helped make sure that try to get as many generators or battery backups to people with disabilities who rely on it for their CPAPs or their ventilators or for their wheelchairs like I do. And then when the pandemic hit, this group of people, again, they swung into action to try to hook up people for which it wasn't safe for them to leave the house, to help make sure that they were getting food, make sure they were getting their medicines. And this is kind of emblematic of my community. We kind of provide mutual aid for each other. We really look out for each other because, to be honest with you, there's no guarantee that anybody's going to come to help. And I think that we see that in other social movements. And I think that, all of us, I think, whether you're someone who's an elder or any other group, if we are able to, we need to advocate for ourselves and we need to help each other. So I think that's probably a fairly good rambling description of the kind of the role of East Bay disability history all the way up to today. And can I throw it back to C.J. and see if there's some questions that people have?
Yeah, we'll entertain questions as well, Jim. Thank you for that introduction or history lesson, I should say, in what has happened in the disabled community. One of the questions we have, Susie, are you monitoring the questions?
I've got questions.
Okay.
Marie Jones is asking, what can Rotarians do to best support Crip Camp? And fun fact, Jim Lebrecht starred in a preparedness film for people with disabilities that her agency directed and produced, and said he was awesome.
Well, Anna Marie, I thought I saw your name there, and I was 99% positive it was you. So great to see you, and and that was a wonderful video. That really, and here's the great thing about that video: it was about disaster preparedness and what can I do as somebody with a disability to make sure that I'm prepared. But the beauty of what your video also said was, we can also help other people. This is a two-way street. Just because I'm in a wheelchair or I'm deaf or I'm blind doesn't mean that I can't assist people during a time of disaster or crisis. Because Lord knows we're incredible big, we MacGyver things every day. We're used to kind of, improvising. And, if I'm in a situation where the lights went out, I'd rather be with somebody who's blind because they know what to do. They're familiar with that. So kudos to you for that. And I've always really just always appreciated that experience that I had, Anna Marie. So thank you. In regards to Crip Camp and the film, first off, it is on Netflix and kind of unadvertised. It's also available at the moment on YouTube. And Netflix was extraordinary for the ADA 30, which happened in July, to release it out without announcing it as a way to acknowledge the 30th anniversary of the ADA. But because their educational license doesn't really work when no one's in a classroom, it enabled educators to be able to use the film and share it with their students. There is a website for our film, www.cripcamp.com. And if you dig around in there, there are educational materials there and lesson plans and light that teachers can use, or even just conversation starters with, among you and your friends or your family. The film is rated R, but that is due to a little bit of salty language here and there, and some discussions around some sexual themes, but it is, it's certainly not salacious in any stretch the imagination, I would say it's easily okay for young teens and above, and really younger. And I also just want to say that, you know, one of the great things I think about Crip Camp is that it's really a view from inside the community. Nicole asked me, I had asked Nicole to, she might be interested in making a film about this camp because of the connections with the disabled civil rights movement. And she asked me to direct with her. And we wound up having this incredible collaboration, but there's really a view of disability from the inside. And so often we see other people kind of observing us and talking about us, but any great documentary, when you can get it from the voice of the people that are being seen and discussed, is going to wind up being true and authentic. And that's really the big difference I think our film has.
Other questions, Susie?
Yeah, David Stein wants to know, what are the key issues being raised by those marginalized within the disability community?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, I think that a lot of folks that have been marginalized feel like their history has not been seen. And that certainly, you know, the big moments of the ADA passage, or even this 504 sit-in and such, that it was a movement that people, for the most part, white people who were really seen in front of the cameras and were spokespeople. But yet the contributions of people of color and all sorts of other folks were just as critical. And if you see Crip Camp, you'll see this incredible example where the Black Panthers came in and wanted providing food for every single day of that sit-in in a federal building. Well, why did that happen? Well, it's because they were, you know, they were African Americans as part of this movement, and that were Panthers, and that also the people in the Bay Area, we were showing up for other people's demonstrations. As Nicole and I were going through archival footage, you would see people from Camp Jened and this movement at like one of the first gay pride events. You would just see us showing up in places, and so people showed us up for us. And I think it's critical in every movement. You just don't silo yourself.
Question, Susie?
Just one more. Kimberly Cones as well. One wants to say, I love the movie, but only saw the first hour and is looking forward to completing tonight. And Sid didn't see any deaf campers. Did Jeanette serve deaf and have ASL interpreting?
Yes, there were deaf campers there. You may not have seen that overtly displayed or people signing, but indeed they were there. You know, I could point out a couple of people in photographs and such, but in the footage, but yes, for certain.
Okay. And Seth, other than that, there's some comments, but no questions.
All right, well, one of the comments I see on there that Harold Lowe said this month he provided training for our 2 scout troops to work on disability merit badge. One of a merit badge I require our scouts to take independently of the scout required badges. I require our scouts to understand the diversity of our community. And thank you, Jim, for the film.
Thank you. You know, and it says, let me mention this, that I think that in discussions around diversity or inclusion, that disability has sometimes been left out. It's often been left out, to be honest with you, if I'm going to be blunt. And I and other people are starting to see a shift finally. But it's really taken a long time. I think that people think about disability, they've been thinking about this old kind of medical model or charity model of disability, not thinking about it as a social civil rights issue, which really is what it is. And you know, I got to tell you, I think there's some kind of a muscular dystrophy telethon that's happening sometime really soon, and it's really troubling to people in my community because traditionally telethons use pity to raise money for MDA. Does some really great work. But when you're saying, especially the history of all of this, when you said, please pity these poor people who are caught in their metal prisons of their wheelchair, saying
Yeah.
that we're wheelchair bound, which I don't sleep in my wheelchair. I don't snuggle up with my sweetheart in my wheelchair. You know, it's you know, and so if we think about this really as a social, you know, civil rights issue, it's really, really important. And while I'm on this, let me just say one thing. You know, we all think about the ADA, and essentially in business, I think a lot of people said, oh my gosh, this is just business. You know, again, I have money I have to spend, and it's regulations that are just killing me in my business. And I have to say that, first off, if you look at the intention of the disability of the ADA, first off, don't look at it as a ceiling. It's just simply a floor. And also, if you change your mind and say, it's not being something I have to do, it's something I want to do, I swear to God, it's like some kind of Zen thing happens in which you really find the solutions and you find the ways to make it work. And people are very, very concerned about drive-by, what were known as drive-by ADA lawsuits and the such. And look, I'm not thrilled with these people either who seem like they are, you know, out just to kind of get money. But let me just tell you something. Every business owner has had 30 years to comply with the law. And it's not fair to those businesses that have complied with the law, that have put the money and resources in to making sure that I can be part of society.
Mhm.
So I could sympathize with anybody trying to run a business. I ran a business for 25 years. But I have to say, if you've tried to skirt the law because you didn't think it was important, I and 25% of the people in our society are the reason that it's really important to do so.
Thank you, Jim. We have one other comment that somebody just put up and said, you're good fun. And so are we. You ought to be a Rotarian. You might want to join us.
Well, thank you. I will definitely think about this because you folks, I mean, I came at the perfect time with Halloween, didn't I?
Yes. Thank you, Jim, for being our speaker today. This year, our club is making homelessness a crisis in Oakland a priority. To that end, and as our gift to you for being our speaker for the day, in your honor, we are making a donation to support our unhoused residents in Oakland. Additionally, we would like to give you our Centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland #3. It's written by our very own Rotarian, Linda Hamilton. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Executive Director Pat Williams, do we have a winner in the Halloween mask contest?
We do indeed. And so the winner is Celeste Gordon.
All right.
Congratulations, Celeste.
Let's see, spotlight Celeste. Can we spotlight her real quick so everybody can see her? There we go.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Yay.
And you get the prize from past President Robert Kidd. What was the prize? A little pumpkin or something? What was it? We'll make sure we get it to you. Whatever it is.
$10,000 bill from Robert Kidd.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Pat, do we have any bell ringers for today?
We did indeed. So Keith Uriarty and Lou Regali rang the bell for our wonderful new member, Chantal.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right, communications co-chair Isaac Koss-Reed, will you tell us about our speaker next week or our event next week?
No, I won't, Seth.
I guess he won't. Isaac, is he on? Well, we're going to have a training session for next week. The communications committee has put together a program to teach everybody about not only Zoom meetings and also social media and how we can be more active as a club and make sure everybody is familiarized with all the aspects of the social media. So yes, Pat, go right ahead.
Just to point out, the date's wrong on the slide. It's November 5th.
Yes, next week, November 5th. It was wrong on the slide at the beginning of the meeting when we were running the slides. Thank you, Jack, for the thought for the day. Congratulations, Kevin, on getting your blue badge. Welcome new member Shane. And thank you, David, for notifying us about the BDC Virtual Business Expo event. Thank you, CJ, for introducing our speaker. And finally, a big thank you to David for sponsoring this meeting. And so I'd like to end this meeting as usual. And that's the way it went on 5,350 club meeting of October 29th, 2020 at Oakland Rotary number 3, the third oldest Rotary club in the world. Everybody remember, Rotary opens opportunities for service above self. And for now, this meeting
Onward.
of Oakland is adjourned. Thank you.
Yay.